Welcome to the Therapy Show podcast. I'm your host, Lisa Mustard. In each episode, I interview a seasoned and knowledgeable talk therapist from the counseling world to glean valuable insights, techniques, and tools that you can apply to your practice and your life. And if you're considering a career in the counseling field or just want to hear about what it's like to be a talk therapist, then this is the podcast for you. Today, we are diving into the innovative world of therapist directories and how aligning therapy practices with personal values and beliefs can attract our ideal clients. My special guest, Soad Tabrizi, LMFT, is a visionary in the field of mental health, and she shares her journey of creating directories that cater to specific needs and philosophies, ensuring that both therapists and clients can find the perfect match for their therapeutic journey. In this episode, we explore the creation of Simply Well, a directory designed for holistic practitioners born out of her own personal health challenges and a desire to connect individuals with natural and holistic health solutions. We also discuss the motivation behind conservativecounselors.com, a platform that arose from the need to provide a safe space for clients with conservative values in an increasingly polarized therapeutic landscape. Soad shares her insights on the importance of therapists recognizing their own values and how this awareness can shape their practice. We also touch on the challenges and rewards of integrating personal beliefs into our professional work, the impact of social activism within the therapy field, and the importance of maintaining a balanced and inclusive approach to mental health care. So join us as we navigate the complexities of modern therapy practices, the significance of directories in connecting like-minded individuals, and the crucial role of values in shaping the therapeutic experience. So, whether you're a therapist looking to expand your practice or a client seeking guidance that aligns with your beliefs, this episode offers valuable perspectives on finding harmony and effectiveness in the world of mental health. But before we hear from Soad, I want to share a gift with you. You can now get my free guided meditations and hypnosis recordings. Both practices engage the brain and the central nervous system in ways that can lead to significant changes in perception, emotion, and health. They both facilitate changes in mental state and physiological responses through focused attention and relaxation. Meditation often focuses on mindfulness and awareness without a specific goal beyond the practice itself, while hypnosis is typically goal-oriented, seeking to change specific thoughts, behaviors, or sensations. And currently, I have recordings on weight management, achieving success, releasing anxiety. So click the link in the show notes to go ahead and get the free recordings. I am planning to add other recordings that focus on healthy relationships, confidence, and much more. Once again, just click that link in the show notes. All right, let's dive into the interview. Well, hey, friends, welcome back to another episode of The Therapy Show. I'm your host, Lisa Mustard, and this week's guest is Soad Tabrizi. Welcome to the show. It is so great to have you.
Lisa, I am honored. Thank you so much for having me on here. I really appreciate it. I've been watching you from afar, so I'm like, oh, I get to finally be on her show. So thank you.
Gosh. Well, thank you, because I've been watching you from afar, and you are doing some really neat things in our field, and I'm just thrilled to have you on the podcast. But one of the things I wanted to dive right into is what you're doing with your directories, because a lot of therapists, I don't know about you, but I kind of like stalk a lot of Facebook groups that therapists are in. They're looking for an additional stream of income. And what you're doing is just that. You have kind of found a niche and found a way to help other therapists get found, be seen, all that good stuff with a directory. How did you decide to do that? Like, what's the story behind all of that?
Okay, so there's Simply Well, which is the directory for my holistic practitioners. And that one was the first brainchild, essentially. And how that came about was I actually was diagnosed with an autoimmune disease, and it's an unknown autoimmune disease. They're not quite sure exactly if it's Hashimoto's or if it's lupus or what it could be. But they noticed things in my blood work, and they're like, okay, there's something there. We're just not quite sure what it is. And it took me about 10 years to finally get that kind of a diagnosis. And those 10 years, I was just going to traditional medicine doctors and asking them or telling them something's wrong with me. I don't know what. I swear I know there's something wrong. There are certain things that when I eat, I react to. I don't know what's happening. There's days that I'm just not feeling well. And I would always have the same symptoms. And they would either say, well, it's in your brain. And sometimes I believe that because psychosomatic stuff is possible, and I agree that sometimes we have these certain perceptions that cause illnesses in our body. But I knew myself that I'm like, I'm not depressed, I'm not anxious, I don't worry about things, I'm not sad. There's nothing going on in my life that I'm suppressing. So I couldn't just sit with, well, it's psychosomatic. And then when I started seeing specialists, I noticed they would do the exact same blood work that my primary care doctor would do. No different. I was like, well, then what's the point of a specialist? I don't get it. And finally, when I got to a rheumatoid doctor, he basically said, or she, excuse me, said that, yes, we see something there, but it's a false negative for lupus. So we're not going to call it lupus. So just take some steroids and then prescribe me some steroids. And that was it. That was the extent of the treatment that I got. So then fast forward a little bit, a couple of years, and then COVID happened. And then when COVID happened, there was this whole push for, obviously, as we know, the vaccine. And I was very skeptical from the beginning of saying, I don't, again, want to put something into my body without knowing what it is because I'm already so harmed. I can feel it and sense it. So I pushed back and did it and then did more research on my own. I was like, yeah, this isn't something that I'm willing to put into my body. Then when I was able to kind of step back and go, okay, if I'm looking at a vaccine and saying I can't put this into my body, I've been taking the flu shot for about 10 years because when I became a therapist, I started working at hospitals and they would mandate the flu shot shot, excuse me, and without thinking twice about it, I would just do it because that's what you're supposed to do. I was like, wait, okay, so why didn't I investigate that shot? And then when I looked back at when my symptoms started and how I started getting sick, it was exactly the time that I started taking the flu shots and all the Hep B shots and the tetanus shots we had to get at the hospital and everything else that we have to get at the hospital when we work there. I'm like, okay, I need to step back from all of this for a second and go, no more shots, no more anything, because everything is aligning to when I started giving myself these shots. And I started asking questions, believe it or not, to a lot of my friends who were doing home births. And I was against home births. I was like, this is ridiculous. You guys are crazy. Just like I was against homeschooling. I was like, you guys are nuts. You're not qualified to do this. I was against all of that. But these group of people that I'm friends with did all of it. So I was like, you know what? Let me broaden myself here. Let me open my mind for a second. And I went and asked them, why are you home birthing? That was basically the simple question. And they started talking about all these shots that they give these poor kids when they're born and what's the necessity of it. And then they started, and I asked them, like, how did you learn this? Where did you learn it from? And they started talking about naturopaths and functional medicine doctors, doulas, midwives. Like, who are these people? Who are these magical individuals that know all of this stuff? And when I started researching who they are, I was like, wait, these people are saying I can help by going to the root cause of what's going on versus just giving you a band-aid for the symptoms that are happening to you, which is what mainstream science and medicine does. Is this gives you this band-aid for the symptoms versus, okay, let's sit down and look at you as a whole and see what's going on with you. So I ventured out and started looking for naturopaths. And then this is where I ran into trouble. I didn't know where to look. Other than word of mouth from a friend, there was nothing online that I can just go and go, naturopath, find me one around here. And what I had to compare that to was in the therapy world, we have Psychology Today. And anytime someone wants to find a therapist, I usually will say, go to Psychology Today, put in your zip code, and a therapist will pop up in your zip code area. And I'm like, well, wait a minute, why don't we have something like that for naturopaths and acupuncturists and everybody that's more on the natural and holistic side? And there wasn't any. So that's kind of where Simply Well started. It started brewing around the beginning stages of COVID. And then finally, I was like, if I thought someone's going to do this, someone's going to create a directory, but no one did. And I'm like, okay, we need this. We need this directory. Why isn't someone in this professional world doing this? And so I was like, well, why aren't I doing it? I don't understand why aren't I taking the charge here? So I did. And I reached out to a couple of people that I felt like could help me create this and how I reached out to my lawyer. And he was like, okay, I mean, if this is really something that you want to do, but he just had to make sure legally what we had to get done. And we created it, and it's something that I'm proud of. It's something that I'm like, basically, this is the place that I want practitioners to go to and list their business so that people like me can find you. It's really more about providing a service for clients that really desperately need this help and don't know where to go to find it. That's the whole purpose of Simply Well completely. And then you can also write blog posts as a practitioner, anything about your specialty that you want to share. We encourage people to write articles on there so people can learn from you as well. I mean, that's one big thing. But it's basically that's it. It's just a special hub for naturopaths who are willing to help and want clients to know that they're there. And it's an easy tool for clients to find a doctor.
Yes, I've been on there. You can filter so many different types of natural healers. It's really cool. And I
Yes.
love that you have so many different options on there. So if you're a therapist out there and you're thinking that they would want to join, what are you looking for, or what kind of therapist would make the most sense to join the Simply Well directory?
Perfect. So therapists basically who are integrative mental health therapists.
Mhm.
And what integrative basically means, like I'm certified in integrative work. And you don't have to be certified, but you just have to believe in that kind of theory. And that theory is essentially saying pharmacology has its place, but it's not necessarily the go-to.
Mhm.
Let's first step back and look at your diet. Let's look at your exercise. Let's look at your home life. What's that like? Let's look at the environment that you're living in before we jump to the band-aid versus the root cause. And that's what an integrated mental health specialist does. They step back and go, okay, you're listing all these problems, and I know you want relief from these symptoms. Are you willing to maybe work with me a little longer so we can maybe work on your diet and everything else to see if those symptoms go away before we jump to pharmacology? And most times people say, yeah, let's try it. Why not? Some people are adamant about the fact that they want pills because they want the quick fix, and that's fine. That's what you want. Then, of course, I have to refer out and go see a psychiatrist. But for the most part, we're trained to kind of go, okay, this sounds like you're low in magnesium, or this sounds like, you know what, you probably need some vitamin D. We're not prescribing it. We're just saying it sounds like something's going on with your supplements here that maybe you might want to take a look at. And then we, of course, refer to maybe a naturopath or a functional medicine doctor. I'm constantly telling people to also do some acupuncture. I myself am a Reiki master, so I love doing energy work with people as well. So there's avenues before the pills that come in.
Love it. I love it. What a great concept. And I agree with you 100%. And it's interesting that I've shared this story before, but when the way I got interested in therapy was I actually went to therapy in my mid 20s. And I remember my therapist saying, I think you'd benefit from an antidepressant. And I was like, okay, well, you're my therapist and I don't know anything about this. So I've never done this before. So sure, I'll go and get a prescription. Well, this is just me. This is just my experience. I felt so numb that
Mhm.
within like 6 weeks to 8 weeks, I remember saying, I would rather feel sad than feel nothing because I feel nothing right now. I'd rather be sad and work on my sadness. And so I think that there's a lot of room here for therapists to make an impact in suggesting, hey, why don't we look at what you're eating and are you getting exercise and what's your sleep like and how is your and I know we ask those questions, but do we really do anything with them? And so I think having a little bit of knowledge, taking some courses around integrative nutrition and mental health would be a wonderful thing for therapists. And there's so many options out there now. But it is. I mean, you don't have to jump right into the pharmacology. I mean,
Right.
really don't. It's it's interesting.
And I don't know about you, but I didn't have in grad school, I didn't have any classes in nutrition
No.
whatsoever.
Mm-mm.
And or meditation or anything like that. It was strictly here are the types of theories that you can use and modalities you can use, and what's a good clinician, what's a bad clinician, and then pharmacology, a
Right.
whole class on pharmacology.
Yeah.
But there was just nothing about, well, how does food, help us or harm us? How does our lifestyle help us? How does exercise help us? There was none of that. And I really try to encourage therapists now to go and actually seek those types of CEUs. Go find one that's more about nutrition, food and mood and all that stuff. And just so that we can kind of have a better understanding of how what we put into our body affects what comes out of our body. I mean, it's almost like now that I speak it, it's almost like duh.
Right.
But back then I was clueless.
Yeah.
I was because I was so I hate to use the word, but I was so indoctrinated to just believe and do a certain thing.
Mm.
And I wasn't tested to kind of look beyond that, beyond the textbooks, and see that there's actually other ways of going about this. And you bring up a good example. With the whole I rather feel sad than feel numb because at least you're feeling something. And I think that's the thing that most therapists lack is the courage and the guts to go there with the client to kind of say, "Hey, listen, I'm willing to sit with how uncomfortable you are. But you're going to have to also be able to sit with how uncomfortable you are. And if you're okay with that, then let's do this. Let's
Yeah.
see. And I will be in charge of monitoring what I can and making sure that, hey, this is dangerous or not dangerous. But if you're willing to go there with me, let's do this. Let's fight this together." I don't think a lot of therapists do that. And I hate to even say this because I know so many therapists are going to be upset with me and forgive me. I love you guys. I'm on your team. But many of us therapists have gotten lazy in our approaches. And I think that because of that laziness, that's why we don't have that courage anymore to be like, let's do this together. I know this is going to be hard for the both of us. I am going to hate watching you suffer, but I'm going to be able to hold that space for you and be okay and remind you that there's hope on the other side of that
Yeah.
space.
Yeah, no, I can agree with you on that, the mindset of the laziness. I mean, and not in like a, damning way. I'm not, mad at therapists it's just kind of the nature of the work the past couple years, there's
Right.
just been such an uptick in mental health issues and we've been busy and we've been dealing with more acute clients. It's just been a really wild past, what are we doing? 2024, past three
Right.
and a half, 4 years. And so I get it. Like I understand, but we're kind of coming out of that. And I think a lot of people are now more interested in the natural ways of doing things. I think we're kind of using that, waking up to what is best for us as individuals and what just because somebody tells us who's in an authority that this is the right thing to do. I don't
Right.
know about that. Like I'm not sure. I'm really
Right.
not. So I think we all have to be our own detectives and we have to really think about what is important for us as individuals for sure and for our families. I mean,
Right.
you
Right.
know, but it's tough. But yeah, that whole thing about lazy, I mean, I agree. I think that there are people, therapists out there who, and I get it. Like I've been lazy
Mhm.
too because and a lot of times for me it's when they come in and they want it, and they just want it and they don't want it. I'm like, okay, well, I'm not going to work any harder than you on this, but let's just talk about this first, you know?
Right,
Um,
right, right.
yeah.
And that is a motto that a lot of us there,
Mhm.
including myself, that we have where it's like, I can't work harder than you.
Mhm.
So if you're gonna come in and say no, then I'm gonna just say, okay. I may push back and say, can you give me the reasons no, just so I can make sure you've seen all the sides of this answer? Do you really is it an informed answer of saying no? But for the most part, I can only go as far as the client lets me go. The laziness I feel comes in, for instance, I know that I am not like a lot of my other colleagues who can see 8 clients in a day, 6 days a week or 5 days a week. That I am not built that way. They have a gift that is unbelievable that they can do that and not be exhausted and tired. I know that I can only work 3 days a week and I can only see a certain amount of clients within those 3 days. That's just how I'm built. If I ignore that and do what I used to do back in my beginning years and see people 5 days a week and have a caseload of 25 to 30 people, I do get to a mindset of just like, okay, let me just like
Yeah.
get through this next one. Let me just get through this next one.
Right.
I've got 5 more to see. Just let me get through this next one. Oh my God, what am I supposed to do for group? I got to figure out what I'm gonna like you it's just a rat race at that point. For me, some people, like I said, they can do it. And kudos to you. I love you guys. I'm happy you guys are out there. We need you. But if I am to ignore that I am not one of those people, I'm just going to become a lazy therapist. I am just going to become a robot in treatment. And I don't want to do that. I knew in order for me to be an effective therapist, I had to know what my boundaries were and I had to know what my skill set is. And I have to understand what my talents allow and be able to work along those lines and not try to prove anything to anyone. So I think that this whole working that many hours isn't for everybody. And unfortunately, since it's not for everybody, those people that it's not for stay in it and then end up becoming lazy because of it.
Yes. No, I hear you. And I agree with you. And I think there's probably a lot of people listening that are nodding their head and saying, "Yes, that's me." It is a lot. And,
Right.
I see them in the groups and I hear them and I feel for them because in their mind, the mindset of I have to see this many people to make a living. But at the same time, it's like what kind of care are you giving? What is the quality of care like? So it is a tough place to be, and every therapist has to make that decision. How do they want to do this work? What's their balance going to be like, or their priorities? What's that going to be like? And it's tough. I remember in the beginning, or my first job, it was like you got to see 7 people a day. That's what the
Mhm.
expectation is, and it was like, are you kidding me? Like, how in
Right.
the world? Because by the time you get to the 4th or 5th person, you're just like, I so, I mean, I feel for the people that, that come in and that you're just the next one in line. I mean, I know what it's like to be seen by a therapist who you're number 5 for the day. They look on their face is like I know that they can't give their all at that point. So there's a lot here that we're unpacking, but
Right.
I don't want this to be, I do want to give some hope and encouragement for therapists out there that, you can build your practice to be what you want it to be in terms of success, but define your success first and then work backwards. And
Right. And I
yeah.
get that question often. I run a group on Facebook as well, and a lot of clinicians get burnt out. And
Mhm.
so the first thing that they ask is how can I make another income? Like how can I supplement my income so that I can push back a little bit or pull back,
Yeah.
excuse me, from therapy work. And I love that question because I just love giving the answers. Like there's so much you
Yeah.
can do. And don't think within the field of mental health. What are your other talents? Are you creative? Start doing some artwork and throw it on Etsy and sell it.
Yeah.
If you're a writer, write a book. The other last year I wrote a journal, 30-day journal, because I was just like, I like to write. I like to give tools to people. Let me just make one. And that was another way of making income. There's so many different avenues and I don't want therapists to think like, well, it's got to be within mental health. No, it doesn't.
No.
No, it doesn't. It could be anything under the sun. I don't want you to do an OnlyFans page, but anything else would be great.
Right. Right. Yeah, we don't want
Yeah.
that. But I think that's such good advice. I think in those groups it can be really overwhelming because it's like I just feel for that therapist that gets in a group and says, "All right, guys, I'm so burnt out. I need to do something right away to cut back on clinical hours. What are you doing?" And it's like,
Mhm.
"Oh my gosh, that's such a huge question." And it's everybody just starts saying, "This is what I do and this is what I do." And we're all reading the answers. It's like, "Oh, I could do that. Oh, I could do that. Oh, I could do that." What's the path of least resistance to get me out of the clinical chair is what I think people are asking. I wish it was that simple, but you know, it's really not. I mean, yeah, sure, you could go and like, Instacart until you figure it out, or you can go and do something else to kind of try to make up for those hours. Because it's like it takes time to figure out what your next option or income stream can be. And just because someone else is doing it and getting success doesn't mean that that's the right path for you as a clinician. But I agree with you. I think there's so many things that we can do with our skill set. So many things. In fact, I want to do an episode just on that where I, give like 5 or 6 ideas. And I have a kind of in that's in the works of like, okay, I want to stay in the world of mental health, but I don't want to, see more clients. So what kind of job is there? Or I want to transition out of the clinical work and not see people, but so anyway, I'm working on that episode you got.
That would be a great podcast,
I'll work
honestly,
on that.
because that is the biggest question I think that
Mhm,
we get often
mhm,
is what else can I do? And like you said, we look at the answers like because we're looking for something that sticks. That we go, that's it. That's
mhm.
what I can do. I didn't think about that. And a lot of times I tell people the simplest thing to do is go on Indeed and look and see
Yeah,
what's there
yeah,
and see if something grabs you. Like you're like, "Oh, I didn't even think that I'd wanna do that, but that sounds so me. I can
yeah,
totally do that. I do that every day anyway." It
right.
could be data analysis, it could be data entry, it could be anything so mundane that you wouldn't think about doing it, but it's like, "No, I want something that's kind of dead in the brain where I just plug in numbers that I don't have to think or respond.
Yeah.
That actually would be a great release for me, believe it or not.
Yeah.
So yeah, you should totally do that podcast, please, because I would use it as a tool for my therapists to go
Oh,
look at. Yeah,
sweet. Okay.
absolutely. Yeah.
We'll
Yeah.
have to
I would
plan
be
that.
like, hey, go to listen to this podcast. She had great suggestions. Do it that way.
Okay, well, I will do it. I will do it in the near
Good.
future, you guys. So it's coming out. What? So tell me about. So you're an LMFT, is that right? In California.
Correct.
Okay,
Yes, in
and
California.
so you have your private practice.
I do. So I have a
Okay.
private practice and I'm all 100% telehealth.
Mhm.
And I have a license in 8 different states. So I can see patients in 8 states and give them a super bill.
Sweet.
However, I still see people in all 50 states. And if they want to see me, they would have to understand that they won't be able to get reimbursed because
Mhm.
I can't give them a super bill in those states. And we would work under it would be a coach or counselor client relationship. It wouldn't be a
Gotcha.
therapist.
I want to share with you a fabulous offer from Therapy Notes. Have you ever felt swamped by endless paperwork and tangled schedules? Then step into a world of clarity with Therapy Notes. Hailed as the gold standard in electronic health records, Therapy Notes is your beacon in the dynamic realm of mental health care. With their round the clock 7-day live phone support, it's evident why they shine with a dazzling 4.9 out of 5 stars on trustpilot.com and Google. From effortless billing to streamlined scheduling, precise note taking, and state of the art telehealth, Therapy Notes is your all in one solution. And for the prescribers out there, they're ecstatic to introduce ePrescribe. And if you're switching lanes from another EHR, they've got your back. They will seamlessly migrate your demographic data at zero cost, ensuring you hit the ground running. So become part of the 100,000 plus mental health professionals community who've chosen Therapy Notes. And to embark on a 2-month complimentary journey, just tap the link in the show notes or use promo code Lisa at checkout at therapynotes.com. That's promo code Lisa, Lisa, at checkout at therapynotes.com. So dive into the Therapy Notes experience today and see why it's the talk of the town. Navigate with confidence and choose the best. Okay.
Yeah.
So a lot of therapists want to do that too. They want to move into the coaching or consulting world. Um, how do you I'm just really curious, like how do you market yourself in the different ways? Like, how do you get
So
clients? I guess I'll just ask that question.
that is exactly how I just described it right
Mhm.
now. So it's on my website and it's 2 different services. So one's going to be psychotherapy and the other one's going to be coaching or counseling.
Mhm.
And I explained to them the difference between the two is that I'm just licensed in one state and I'm not licensed in the other. The treatment is exactly the same. However, in the coaching and counseling, I have a lot more freedom.
Mhm.
So I'm able to give it to you as it is. Like, just talk to you as if, you're more of a friend and being able to give you a lot more advice and being able to be really serious and straight with you. Whereas with therapy, we have some boundaries and rules because we're bound by the ethical and moral rules of therapy work in our license and our boards. So it's because of that, I get a lot more that say, well, I just want the coaching and counseling. I
Yeah.
need you to just say it straight.
Yeah.
I want advice. I want you to help me in these areas. I don't I'm not processing anything. I'm doing something wrong and I need someone to tell me what it is I'm doing wrong. Um, so I have a lot more of those clients than I do psychotherapy clients because they just don't want the Super Bowl. They're like, no, it's okay. Forget about the Super
Yeah.
Bowl. I don't care. Some people are like, no, I really need the Super Bowl because I need to get reimbursed,
Sure.
which is understandable. I'm
Mhm.
still myself, but I just have to be more careful,
Sure. Oh, and
essentially.
that makes sense. I get it. Because
Mhm.
in life coaching, it usually is a different model. It's a little more present focused, a little more future focused, not so much processing trauma.
Right,
In the life
right.
coaching realm, like, okay, so you've had trauma, but that's not why you're here. You're here because
Exactly.
something right now is in your way and you're stuck and you need to make some goals and you need to move forward and let's make
Mhm.
you an action plan. Okay. Makes sense.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
And I have
And
2 different
uh
contracts for both.
okay.
So there's an informed consent for psychotherapy, and then there's an informed consent for the coaching and counseling.
Sure. Makes
So
sense.
yeah, so
And do
legally
you
I'm
have a
covered too.
do you have a niche that you like to work with? Like, do you have a population?
I don't. I specialize with addicts. I specialize in integrative mental health work. I also specialize with law enforcement officers and veterans. I go every year and I get specialty kind of courses in those areas. I'm big on helping our after action kind of folks. But for the most part, I see all adults anywhere from 18 to however old. I think my oldest was 86. And it's mainly what I've noticed. My clients tend to be people who are trying to do some self-discovery work, and then also kind of just figuring out their philosophy in life and their bad behaviors and why do they stick to those bad behaviors. That seems to be the theme of the people that I see. I love bringing in philosophy and talking philosophical in sessions. It's one of my favorite things to do. I do a lot of work in figuring out people's values and core beliefs.
Mhm.
And kind of my big thing is just being able to kind of look at your values and core beliefs and if you're walking in contradiction to them or in harmony with them.
Mhm.
And if you are in contradiction, why? Do you actually believe those things?
Right.
Or maybe are you in an environment that doesn't allow you to live out those
Yeah.
values and beliefs? So that's a lot of what I do as well. That's kind of the birth of what my journal came from, is from that kind of value and belief work. Because the journal also is it's a 30-day prompt to
Mhm.
get you to understand who you are and what your values and beliefs are in
Yeah.
the process.
I love that. My coaching method and model is very similar. I say walking in alignment with our values and beliefs.
Yes.
So I
Amen.
love that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Are you congruent? Are you,
Yeah.
saying one thing and doing another? And, that's where so many issues lie for people is like they believe that they have a value over here, but then they're not showing up in as they would like to. And it's just like, and it keeps them stuck. So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
bet, I bet we could have some really
Yeah,
cool
and it's
conversations around
it's
that. Yeah.
interesting because that has a lot to do with, like, the whole holistic thing
Mhm.
is they'll talk about how they believe in natural ways of taking care of themselves. They believe in being, the champion of their own health, and then they're so quick to be like, "Oh, yeah, I'm gonna get my flu shot tomorrow." And I'm like, "Okay, okay, hold on. You why?
Right.
What's the purpose of the flu shot? Like, you're all about empowering your health. That's what you're saying your value is, but you're so quick to jump to go get the next thing because that's what someone told you to do. So again, that's like going, okay, can we stop for a second and,
Mhm.
and look at that? Like, what caused you to put your values and beliefs aside and just do what someone tells you to do? And it's work like that that I love being able to kind of point out and go, what's going on there? Like, how did you all of a sudden just have this hiccup in your brain and go, oh, I don't believe those things anymore all of a sudden.
Yeah.
I'm going to go do this. But yeah, I love being able to challenge people in their thoughts and beliefs and how they walk them out. And
Mhm.
you said it perfectly, aligning. It's
Yeah.
exactly what it is. It's aligning.
Yeah. Yeah, walking in alignment. It's
Hmm.
so important and it's so true. And I'm just thinking of, times when I've in the past I did this really cool course at my job and they let me do some of this like life coaching stuff. And one of the things that 'cause a lot of people know I work with military branch, and one of the things that I would ask is when I would sit with the soldiers, I would say, "Tell me your values. Like what are your values?" And they were like, "Honor, freedom, I'm like, no, 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 not army values or not military values. I'm like, what do you stand for as an individual? Like, what do you tell me about you? Not just Sergeant so and so, but Joe Smith. Like,
Hmm.
what does Joe Smith believe? And so it's so much fun to be able to do that work. And
Yeah.
and this program was actually a health program because they were in a place where they were not making their weight for the military. What am I trying to say? There's a name for it, but they weren't um, they weren't making weight for their next physical test. And so
Right.
they were in this program where they were helping them like lose the weight. And we were going through this whole mindset thing about eating and about nutrition and, how, cause we called it the ranch. I'm like, you're going to leave the ranch, like, the biggest loser, and you're going to
Hmm.
go back to your family. And what's going to happen when your wife or your kids are like, no, we don't want that. We want Bojangles for dinner tonight. And how are you going to handle that? So it was, I really enjoyed that program. I would love to bring that back. It was really, really fun.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
That's
I really
awesome.
enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Well, so I know I want to touch on your other directory that you have,
Yes.
and that is conservativecounselor.com. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yes. So this one's a little more on the controversial side, which is I'm totally willing to take on any backlash because I have to be able to defend what I believe, obviously. So there has been this whole push and movement for um, basically social activism within our field. And the social activism has been very much leaning towards one side, and that one side is more of the progressive left. And what that's done is it's alienated a whole population that doesn't adhere to that side of the political or value belief system. And what I noticed was that a lot of clients were not seeking therapy anymore because they were so wounded by a more progressive therapist, or they heard these stories of being wounded in therapy and were like, I don't want that for me. I don't even want, this is too sensitive for me. I want to, I'm going to give a very like bold example. One that we had was, I want to be able to talk about how excited I am that Trump won.
Mm.
And I don't want my therapist to hate me because I voted that way.
Right.
And because I heard so and so got dropped from their therapist because they were a Trump supporter, I don't think I can handle that because I have such rejection issues as it is. And
Sure.
that is a real example
Oh,
of
yeah.
many, of
Sure.
many. So because of that, I was like, okay, here we go again. Let's create something where someone can go, I'm going to go look here for a therapist that I know accepts me and is willing to listen to me talk about my values that are a lot more right leaning. And that's how conservativecounselors.com came about. All of the therapists on there, the beliefs that we all believe are on the website, so you can go take a look at it so that you can kind of see like what our beliefs are. It's in the about section of the website. And we just basically say, hey, listen, these are the things that we believe. We're not saying the only people that believe this can come see us. But what we're saying is because there is a fear that there's a group of therapists that don't believe this, we want to help eliminate that fear by saying, no, we do believe this. We're here for you. So if you are one of these people that believes these things, sure, find one of our therapists, pick one, find one in your local. Same thing. It's identical to Psychology Today. Type in your zip code, find a therapist near you. Um, a lot of our therapists are all like myself, they're telehealth, so they can see all over the place, which is great too. And then some are specific to just their area. But again, it's not to say we don't want any left leaning. It's just to say we're people who also share the same values and beliefs as the right leaning, and we want them to know that they're heard as well. And there was another reason why I felt this was important was there was a study, I think it was done back in 2012, and the last time I remember, and it was the only study done where it basically looked at how much of our industry in the mental health field, the therapists in the mental health field are either right leaning or left leaning. And it came up that 94% of therapists are left leaning. That only leaves 6% of us actually right leaning therapists. So that means we have how many people in the United States?
Right.
I don't even know. 7 million? I don't even know. No, that's more than that. Sorry, excuse me.
No,
One,
yeah.
I have no idea
Right.
how many we have. Forgive
Yeah.
me. I am not smart in that area,
200
but
million? I can't remember.
something crazy.
Yeah. It's like, don't quote us on that, but
Yeah, I
it's,
know.
yeah.
Don't go.
Right.
Whatever it is,
Yeah.
only 6% of that population is represented in therapy. And I just think that's so unfair
It is.
to basically people who are like, I just want to feel safe, but I feel like I'm going to get judged if I go in. I'll give another example. This one was a tough one because it really hurt my soul. A person was going into therapy, a very conservative person who was also very Christian. And they made an appointment with a name of a therapist that was female. And so when they went to the the therapist's room, it was an obvious male that came out who just dressed as a female, but very obvious that this was a male. And so the client looked at this person and was like, "Oh, I think there's a mistake. I'm looking for so and so." The name was again female. And then there was that's me. And we obviously are going to have to work on some biases when you come in here. That was the introduction
Oh my gosh.
in the waiting room, not even in the therapy room.
Oh my gosh.
And it's like, that is what I'm talking. It's like, that's so unfair for
Yeah.
that conservative client. I don't care if you don't agree with what they're thinking or if they even have a bias.
Right.
Not the best approach.
Well, and it doesn't, in my mind, it's like, well, that person, even, it doesn't matter if they're like a centrist and they walk in and they just got confused. It's like,
Right.
I mean, to me, that
Right.
makes sense. Like, I'm confused. Oh, we need to work on
Right.
your bias. No, I'm confused.
Yes.
That's like, there's no
Yes.
bias. But, it is, and that's the crazy part. And crazy part, one of the crazy parts is that it is a relationship. So, you know, what does that say to that therapist about how it's a mirror to the therapist as well? It's not just to the
Right.
client, but it's a mirror to that
Right.
therapist. Like, well, maybe I need to work on how I am marketing myself.
Right.
And so
Right.
you can't just get mad at the client. And I see so many people getting mad at their clients for being honest,
Yeah.
for just,
Yeah.
and so I think that what you're doing is really needed. And also, too, like, I can't remember, I just saw something, but most of Americans are centrists. They are in the middle. They are not
Absolutely.
freaking far left like
Right.
the majority of our profession. So it makes sense that, you know, if 96% or whatever that number was, 94% is left leaning, but most of Americans are right there in the middle. It's
Yeah.
confusing for most people,
Right.
and that's just one example. Um, yeah,
Exactly.
I, I could give examples to you all day long, but
Right. Right. And
it's
so
it's
and
how did we get here? Like, how did we get here in our
I
profession?
ask that all the time.
It really blows my mind.
It does. It's sad. It breaks my heart. I see therapists, as I'm sure you do, all the time saying, I'm ready to quit. I'm ready to get out of here. I can't deal with this anymore. This is way too much craziness for me. Left is right, right is left, up is down, down is up. Like what? Nothing makes sense. We have no baseline of reality anymore. There is no reality. It's just my truth, your truth, everyone's truth. We just have to go with the flow of what values are popular that day. And so they're like, I can't keep up. I can't do this, and they want to quit. And I have to sit there and say, please don't. We need you. If
Mhm.
this happens and we all decide to quit because we can't make sense of it, imagine our clients, imagine them who are so confused and who are looking for people like us who have a baseline of reality, who are going to be that foundation for them to kind of figure out their values without pushing an agenda in some way. Like, please just don't quit. And it's hard because I'm seeing them wanna leave, especially students. They are like, "I am just getting indoctrinated in here.
Mm.
I have already been told that because I'm white, I'm the bad person. I'm not good enough, and I'm supposed to somehow be okay with the person of color next to me being more superior than me because of what I am." And that's in grad school. Like,
Yeah.
that's just I hate it. I'm saying it out loud. I hate it. And it makes me really upset that this is where we are, and it's sad because I just don't get how we got here. It's incredibly sad, but please, therapists, if you're listening, don't give up. Please, we need
We
you,
need you.
please.
We need
Definitely,
you.
definitely.
We need you. So if folks are interested in either one of those directories and becoming a member, we'll put the links in the show notes. They can go over there. They can check them out.
And I also have actually for your listeners and viewers,
Mhm.
I have a coupon code for Simply Well. So if you guys want, you can sign up and you get 2 months free. And all you have to do is put it in the code mustard.
Oh,
Um, and
sweet.
then I know you get your own little code, and you can use that anywhere you'd like. And it's 2 months free. So sign up, join, check it out. We're all over social media, so I am always blasting it. We also do a little showcase of your practice on social media. So you'll have your own little post as well with your name and what you do so that people can find you.
Nice.
So yeah, I highly encourage people to sign up. And that's for the Simply Well website.
Well, I will be signing up as soon as I am done with my hypnosis certification.
So
I
cool.
cannot wait.
So
I'm so
cool.
excited. I've been like wanting to tell you that for ever since we started connecting,
Yeah.
but I thought I would wait and tell you today. So as soon as I'm done, hopefully
Love
by the
it.
summer, I will be signing up so
Love
I
it.
can promote, what I'm doing. So thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing your good stuff. I'm so grateful to know you.
I am too, Lisa. Thank you for doing the awesome work that you're doing. You're
Oh,
amazing.
thank you. I appreciate that. Please note that the therapy show with Lisa Mustard is for informational and entertainment purposes only and not a substitute for professional medical or mental health advice. Always consult with your therapist, doctor, or physician before implementing any suggestions from the show. The Therapy Show with Lisa Mustard is edited and engineered by Chelsea Weaver. If you're looking to start a podcast or ready to take the editing off of your plate, be sure to visit chelseaweaverpodcasting.com. Well, that wraps up another episode of The Therapy Show with Lisa Mustard. I know there are hundreds of thousands of podcasts out there, and I'm thankful you've chosen to listen to mine.
Be sure to visit lisamustard.com to access the show notes and discover more fantastic content.
And I'd be grateful if you subscribe to the show. Thank you.